The mass shootings from over the weekend have a lot of communities on high alert this morning specifically, with investigators saying that Buffalo was a racially motivated attack, and that's impacting the mental health of many people in the Black and brown communities. So this morning we're talking with Dr. Riana Anderson. She joins us now live this morning. Thank you so much for being with us. Well, we are all with heavy hearts this morning. I understand you are an assistant professor at the School of Public Health at the University of Michigan and also an expert with mental health. Let's start with this recent shooting in Buffalo and explain for people who may not understand how this is really impacting the health, mental health, and well-being of people in Black and brown communities.
Yes, good morning. So as a clinical psychologist, we know from studies that colleagues have done that this is causing higher depression and anxiety symptoms in our Black and brown children who are witnessing these things. And for adults, we know that it's lowering productivity at work. That means our minds are thinking about this in ways that's preoccupying or causing rumination. And so it's quite challenging for the health and well-being, the daily functioning and activities of Black and brown people in the United States.
Yeah, it's definitely very heavy. This attack happening, less than 2 weeks before the 2-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd at the hands of white police officers. Just talk about how this Buffalo shooting is so traumatic for all people.
Absolutely. We're thinking about, as Biden said beautifully this weekend, the hate that remains a stain on the soul of America. It's something that's not a one-off incident. It's something indeed that when we're pairing it with this 2-year anniversary, this traumatic incident in our country that so many people bore witness to, in fact, internationally, that's something that's giving us memory. It's a memory in our body and in our minds that makes us think back to how we felt 2 years ago, which was so heavy in heart and in spirit, as you said.
Absolutely. And you can't help but notice that in this instance, that this suspect was taken into custody alive, and then you see other Black Americans that have been killed at the hands of white police officers. Just explain the impact that has on our mental health when you have interactions with police in general.
Yeah, one thing that's really important there is when we think about humanity. So especially if we're thinking about what we can do, when we're thinking about the humanity of one person, the way that we're watching someone be taken into custody and thinking about the ways that we've seen the dehumanization of other people, whether they're victims or suspects, right? So that we know that it's not even the same, the way that we're talking about this man who killed these people, this 18-year-old man, but you compare that to Michael Brown, who was indeed called a man, whereas this suspect was called a teenager, a boy, right? So it's really important to think about the humanization of everyone and the intentional dehumanization of those who we've seen in prior years.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So what do we do? I mean, we're dealing with this. We're seeing this, whether you want to avoid it or not. You can't help but see it everywhere. It's on social media. Even the video that was live streamed of this horrific, racially motivated shooting. How do we protect our mental health knowing that this is everywhere and it doesn't seem to be slowing down? We had such a deadly weekend.
So happy you asked. I have just a few takeaways for us this morning. So the first thing, especially as a Detroit resident, one thing that I saw very clearly yesterday was that the loss of life does not mean a loss of light in our community. People were outside yesterday on the Riverwalk, enjoying the day, enjoying their families. So the first thing that I would say is to put down the TV, put down the phone. Don't look at this. Don't consume it so much. Enjoy the life and the light that we have in our communities. The second is really to think about the conversations that we can have. And I know some people might think conversation is not enough for a moment like this, but it's the exact conversation that this young man was watching and engaging in online that got him to think about Black people the way that he did. So we need to have conversations with our children at the dinner table, in our schools, in our mentoring groups, to let them know, again, that all lives have human value and that we should not dehumanize the lives of Black and brown and Asian folk. And what's really important, y'all, is that we have effective gun control. We have people who aren't afraid to talk about these racial concepts in schools and in our communities. So we have to get out the vote to people who are going to be brave to vote for effective gun control and continuing racial dialogue in schools and in public places.
I think the most important thing that you said there was to just take a break from it all. While you're doing that, you can't help but feel a range of different emotions. What should we feel? Are our feelings okay, whether it's sadness, anger, activism? What do we do with those feelings, and are those feelings okay?
so happy we're talking about this. That you're feeling something is important. When we don't feel something, when we're numb to this, that means that we've taken in so much of it that we're not even having a spike in our emotions. So that you're feeling something is really important. It's what you do with it that matters. So if you sit with it, if you don't talk to people, if you don't express how you're feeling, if you're just sitting in that sadness, we know that that's not healthy. But if that anger, if that sadness, if that frustration drives you again to the polls, to have these conversations, to carry a sign, to do whatever it is that's the next step, that's when we know our emotions are taking us to that next level and it's impactful. So we want to drive it for good. We want to make change, make some good and necessary trouble in our communities.
Absolutely. Very good advice there. And thank you for helping us talk through all of our feelings. This is Dr. Riana Anderson, an assistant professor with the School of Public Health at the University of Michigan. Thank you so much for helping us sort of deal with our emotions with this and figure out what to do and where to go from here. We appreciate you.
Thank you.